In the summer of 2010, engineers working deep underground at one of Iran's nuclear facilities began noticing a serious problem. Centrifuges inside the enrichment halls were failing repeatedly, even though they were among the most carefully built machines in existence. Each one spun uranium gas at tens of thousands of revolutions per minute, with aluminium parts balanced so precisely that even the slightest flaw could cause failure. Yet now, these machines were breaking apart one after another. Control room screens showed no warning signs, and diagnostic software reported normal operations, so technicians replaced broken parts, restarted the cascades, and watched the exact pattern repeat. What the engineers could not see was that history was already being written inside their systems. Hidden inside the facility's control network was a digital weapon designed not to steal data or shut down computers, but to damage physical equipment. The malware would later be called Stuxnet, and investigators believe it was most likely developed by the United States and Israel. It entered a network that was cut off from the internet, took control of industrial controllers, and quietly changed centrifuge speeds while feeding false readings back to operators, creating the impression that everything was fine as stress built up inside the machines. The result was a slow but steady breakdown. About 1,000 centrifuges were damaged or destroyed, pushing Iran's program back by months and perhaps years. But the attack mattered for reasons beyond its technical success. Governments do not use tools like this unless they believe something important is at risk, and Stuxnet was aimed at the narrow point where civilian nuclear work can move toward weapons capability. To understand why countries were willing to go this far to slow Iran's progress, we must go back several decades, to a time when Iran's nuclear plans were based not on secrecy or conflict, but on development and cooperation. In the 1950s, Iran was ruled by the Shah, a leader backed by Washington who wanted to turn the country into a modern industrial state. Nuclear technology was widely seen then as a sign of progress, promoted around the world to produce electricity, support hospitals with medical isotopes, and raise a country's scientific standing. The United States actively supported this effort as part of its Cold War policy, encouraging civilian nuclear programs among friendly governments. Iran became part of that plan. Under President Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program, American engineers helped build Iran's first research reactor. Iranian students trained in US and European laboratories, and domestic research centers grew. By the end of the decade, the foundations of Iran's nuclear system were in place, and through the 1960s and 1970s, the program kept expanding as the Shah signed contracts with foreign companies and spoke openly about building power stations across the country. That path changed sharply in 1979.
The Shah and his empress left shortly before midday. The empire he had hoped to build had been shattered by a year of violence.
The Islamic Revolution removed the monarchy and brought in a new government that opposed close ties with the United States, leading to a rapid breakdown in relations that included the takeover of the US Embassy and a long hostage crisis. Within months, cooperation between the two countries had collapsed, and a nuclear program once linked to Western partners was now being carried forward under growing outside pressure. Soon after, Iraq invaded Iran, starting a war that lasted 8 years and left serious damage on both sides. Missile attacks hit cities, long ground battles stretched along the front lines, and chemical weapons were used repeatedly. Hundreds of thousands died. Oil facilities were struck, and large parts of Iran's economy and infrastructure were badly harmed. The war changed how Iranian leaders thought about security. They came to believe that, in moments of danger, outside powers would not step in to protect them, and that building strong domestic capabilities was necessary for survival. That view shaped decisions in the years that followed. During the 1980s and 1990s, Iran continued developing nuclear facilities, while saying the work was civilian, focused on electricity, research reactors, and a fuel system that could operate without foreign help. New sites were planned, technical skills improved, and limited cooperation with other countries continued. At the same time, some parts of the program were kept out of public view. By the early 2000s, secrecy had become a central issue. In 2002, Iran's nuclear activities came into the spotlight when an opposition group revealed a large uranium enrichment site at Natanz that had not been declared to international inspectors. The facility was built underground and reinforced with concrete, and the news led governments and nuclear watchdogs to look more closely. Satellite images soon supported the claims, showing a wide complex taking shape in central Iran. The revelation changed the global discussion. Until then, much of Iran's nuclear work had drawn limited attention. But Natanz focused minds because enrichment is the key step in any nuclear program. Natural uranium contains only a small amount of the isotope U-235, which is needed for both power reactors and weapons. And separating that isotope is what gives the material strategic value. At low levels, enriched uranium can fuel civilian reactors. Raise that level further, and the same process begins moving toward material that could be used in a nuclear weapon. The technology stays the same, only the level of enrichment changes. That difference became even more important as Iran increased its capacity over the next few years. Thousands of centrifuges were operating at Natanz and other sites, giving Iran the ability to process large amounts of nuclear material. When Iran announced it was enriching uranium to 20%, officials said the fuel was meant for medical research reactors, which is one accepted civilian use. Experts, however, pointed out that once uranium reaches that level, much of the difficult technical work has already been done, meaning the move toward weapons-grade material would be much faster if leaders chose to go in that direction. Iran was not building a bomb at that time, but it was moving closer to the point where the final steps could be taken quickly. That background explains why the cyber attack uncovered in 2010 caused such concern. Stuxnet was designed to hit centrifuges directly, not power plants or hospitals, and to strike at the exact place where nuclear work becomes sensitive. Investigators later concluded that the malware entered Natanz through a network cut off from the internet, likely brought in on a USB drive by a contractor or technician, and then searched for a very specific setup of industrial controllers that matched Iran's enrichment systems. Once inside, the code changed how the machines worked, pushing them beyond safe speeds, then suddenly slowing them, placing heavy strain on their parts and sending false signals to monitoring equipment so operators did not see problems forming. By 2013, worries had returned as sanctions imposed by the United States and the European Union put strong pressure on Iran's economy, weakening its currency, cutting oil exports, and driving prices higher, even as nuclear work continued. Intelligence agencies estimated that Iran's breakout time, the time it would take to produce enough weapons-grade material for one device, if leaders decided to do so, had fallen to 2 or 3 months, raising fears that a long-running crisis was reaching a dangerous point. Politics inside Iran then shifted again. In 2013, voters elected Hassan Rouhani, a former nuclear negotiator who promised to improve relations with other countries and ease sanctions. His win opened the door to a new round of talks with 6 major powers: the United States, Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and China. For nearly 2 years, diplomats met across Europe and the Middle East, to argue over enrichment limits, stockpiles, inspections, and reactor designs, all while trying to avoid a path that could lead to military conflict. Those talks ended in July 2015 with the signing of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Iran agreed to remove most of its centrifuges, ship the majority of its enriched uranium abroad, redesign a reactor that could have produced plutonium, and accept deep international monitoring. In exchange, nuclear-related sanctions were lifted, Iran's breakout time grew to more than a year, and economic activity picked up as oil exports rose and international flights returned. Criticism of the deal never fully disappeared.
Israel will not allow Iran to break in, to sneak in, or to walk into the nuclear weapons club.
In 2018, US policy changed once more when President Donald Trump withdrew from the deal, saying it did not cover Iran's missile program or its role in regional conflicts and promising to seek a stronger agreement, which did not follow. Sanctions returned, and Iran responded step by raising enrichment levels, installing newer centrifuges, and limiting parts of the inspection system. By the early 2000s, Iran was enriching uranium to 60% purity, far above civilian needs and only a short technical step from weapons-grade material. At the same time, incidents continued to affect Iran's nuclear facilities. An explosion damaged Natanz in 2020, and a power disruption struck the site the following year. Iran attributed these events to Israeli sabotage, while Israeli officials did not comment publicly. More recently, tensions escalated further when the United States carried out targeted strikes against Iranian-linked facilities in the region following attacks on US personnel. Although these operations were not full-scale attacks on Iran's main enrichment plants, they reinforced the risk of direct confrontation between Washington and Tehran. Analysts noted that large-scale strikes on hardened sites such as Natanz or Fordo would likely delay Iran's program but not eliminate it, since much of the infrastructure is buried deep underground and technical knowledge cannot be erased. Even significant damage would probably set the program back by months or a few years rather than end it permanently. Iran continues to say it does not want nuclear weapons and points to religious rulings and diplomatic statements to support that claim. Western intelligence agencies say they have not publicly seen proof that Iran has ordered the building of a bomb, even as they note that the country now has wide nuclear infrastructure, growing stores of enriched uranium, and deep technical knowledge. For this reason, many experts now describe Iran as a nuclear threshold state, a country that has not crossed into weapon building, but has moved close enough that the key choice would be political rather than technical. That status worries governments across the Middle East because Iran's decisions would affect the whole region. Israeli officials say even the possibility of an Iranian bomb would pose a major threat. Saudi leaders have hinted they would seek similar capabilities if Iran did. Other countries watch closely as conflicts continue in Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, and Yemen, alongside missile launches, drone attacks, and naval clashes in the Persian Gulf. The nuclear issue runs beneath many of these tensions, rarely at the center of headlines, but always shaping decisions behind the scenes. And the biggest danger is not simply that a weapon appears suddenly, but that errors build up. A strike meant to slow Iran that pushes leaders toward faster action, a regional clash that grows beyond control, or a moment when uncertainty gives way to permanent choices. Iran's nuclear program began as a plan for development, later became a sign of independence, and now sits at the center of one of the world's most serious political standoffs. Not because a bomb has been built, but because the conditions exist under which one could be.